remember to click like, subscribe, the bell notification, and whatever else YouTube has you clicking on to support us. What's up, everyone? I am the Kaiju no Kami from the Toku and Animation News Network, and Halloween month continues. I'm here with...
A little intimidated by your excess energy, but I'm Cruellica Kain.
And today, we are here to talk about...
Twilight Zone?
So, Kaiju no Kami versus AI, revolving around what with the Twilight Zone?
The best episodes per AI?
Best episodes per AI, and unlike Tales from the Crypt, this time I have come prepared. Mostly because I also don't know every episode by heart, based off their titles and stuff. More like the ones, because we just finished season 3, so 1, 2, and 3 I mostly know by title, but 4 and 5 I'm still a little bit like, eh.
So for awareness, a little bit about the history of Twilight Zone is it is the brainchild of Rod Serling. I don't know why I said Robert, but Rod Serling, who was known prior to this for a lot of his work in radio, writing similar stories and things like that. The show for Twilight Zone aired from 1959 to, I believe, 1964?
5 years.
5 years. And it was very popular at the time with some hit or miss, but it really became...
And it was canceled like 3 times over.
I was going to say it was canceled multiple times, but it really became more popular in its syndication years later. Growing up, I watched Twilight Zone quite frequently on a lot of the public stations since I didn't have cable. So I've seen a lot of these episodes a lot. And with this series, you could see a lot of their influences today. Not just with the future Twilight Zone series that came about in the 80s to early 2000s, and most recently with Jordan Peele as the host taking the place.
Which was not the most appealing series.
But there's a lot of things that you may hear from these synopses, and you'll be like, wait, I think I've seen that episode. You may not have actually seen the episode, but you may have seen something that really borrowed the idea of it. Namely,
I mean, if it's as accurate as the Tales from the Crypt listing, they're going to be nothing alike.
So, during the black and white era, we had 150 episodes.
156.
They said 150 online. Not on here, online.
It's 156.
80 of which were actually written by...
93. 93 were written by Rod Serling.
Okay. Well, and I am actually not going off of AI here. I have, per the internet, and I know you have the book there, so shut up, but it says the Twilight Zone original show's 150 plus episode run, and he wrote more than 80 episodes. Okay, then I lied. Alright.
I was going to say, I have the book here. It's published. It proves the internet wrong if need be.
That is quite true. So, with that segue, let's begin this top 10.
Ooh, it's only 10, so we won't be here for like an hour?
That's the hope.
Cool.
We may have not been there for an hour with Tales from the Crypt if you didn't have to fight everything.
Well, maybe if they didn't get it wrong, I wouldn't have to fight everything.
Okay, well, let's see how this goes. Number 1. Time Enough at Last. A bookish man, played by Burgess Meredith, finds himself alone in a post-apocalyptic world only to face an ironic twist of fate. That's probably more so on the latter part of the episode for the story.
But it does have the gist down of the episode.
So, basically a bookish man who never has time to read, which I understand.
He loves to read, but nobody will let him read.
He loves to read everything. And this episode always resonates to me because if he doesn't have a book to read, he will literally bring up a bottle and read that. Just to have that love of the written word. What do you think of that being number 1?
It's not. It doesn't make my top 10, but it is a really good episode.
Number 2. My all-time favorite episode ever by Twilight Zone. The monsters are due on Maple Street. A small-town neighborhood descends into paranoia and chaos when the power outage leads to residents to suspect an alien invasion.
Well, that's my favorite episode, so obviously it being on the list is accurate. It was described accurately.
Now, I will admit, where I said that Tales from the Crypt in the prior episode had a lot on social commentary, this series is the creation of talking about social commentary.
Mm-hmm.
Because The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street was a complete criticism to Cold War era communist hunts.
Well, that and what was it he says in here? He actually specifically states it is, if I can find it.
This is the one downside to not knowing the list before. Because I literally don't let him see any of the lists I create from AI. Because I want authentic reactions.
Let's see. 4 of Us Are Dying, The Hitchhiker, The Fever, The Last Flight. Because it's on disc 3 of the Blu-ray. The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. Alright, so he specifically says... Where is it? He specifically says...
Is it any of this? I've not read the book, so I don't know what he's looking for.
Dang it, where is it?
But while he's looking for that, in the 1950s...
Okay, so it says... this episode left a commentary that could have been considered controversial by percentage of viewers. And...
Well, controversy is something that Rod Serling didn't stay away from.
Oh my god, where is it?
But while he's looking, in the 1950s and 60s, shortly after World War II concluded, and we began the Cold War between the U.S. and the USSR, or the United Soviet... Oh God, I can't remember. But modern day Russia, just without some of the aligning countries, like the Ukraine and such. But anyways, since the USSR was a communist state versus America being, as we are, I would say today, as being a democracy, there was this fear of communist spies, and there was a lot of outing of people as communists. And a lot of actors and actresses were blacklisted for being communist, or being assumed communist, or having assumed alliances with communists. And it made it a very difficult and tenuous situation, because even regular people in the world, Oppenheimer had some communist ties with family, Marilyn Monroe did. Many great actors and actresses had their lives destroyed. And admittedly, one of those people who was helping to destroy people's lives in communism, assuming communism, or the Reds as they were called, was actually Walt Disney. So just a little fun fact, that Walt Disney ruined a lot of lives by reporting that they were communist.
Yeah, not his best moment.
So, number 3. Eye of the Beholder. A woman undergoes surgery to conform to societal beauty standards in a world where beauty is defined very differently. This one, I think, still holds true today because of the whole unrealistic beauty standards that are held by the media.
Well, that, and it was also about racism.
Well, yes.
Because they have this thing of, oh, if you don't look like us,
you have to go.
You can't be in our society. You have to go to a separate society to...
But I don't know if people would get the racism today as they did before. Because in the late 50s, when this was happening, this was prior to the Civil Rights Movement, and Rod Serling was really was a huge believer of equality. He actually had stars who were not white in the episodes helming some of their stories. And Eye of the Beholder really is that if you aren't us, you can't be with us. Oh, it's probably my package. Thank you.
But yeah, it was a whole commentary on racism and acceptance, and well, and it's actually been highly criticized by people for being too obvious, because they're like, oh, well, it's too obvious because the way it's filmed, where you don't see anyone's faces, and
but that was the point.
Yeah,
and actually, the way it was filmed, where you could not see faces until the very end, was done in such a manner that helped increase that terror of how can somebody be so different that they can't be with you. And the reason why Twilight Zone was canceled 3 times, even though it lasted for 5 seasons, is because he bucked the system many times. Our next episode, which goes on the vein of mental illness, is Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. William Shatner stars as a man who sees a gremlin on a wing of a plane, not a school bus, he's flying in, but no one believes him. So this is a perfect allegory for madness, of sometimes what people see in their mind's eye may not be real, but it also is a great allegory for people not offering support. They're only offering harm. Because their way of supporting him is not to instead of at least helping to confirm or deny, was to ignore and to imprison.
Yep, and the episode though has so much suspense to it, because you know that he's seen this creature because you see it, but no one's believing him.
And nobody's looking to confirm either. So number 5.
So yeah, that one, like Maple Street, that one's in my top 10 favorites as well, because it is a really good episode. Like, I felt like the first time we watched it, I was like, I don't know, this is the episode everybody was hyping up. And then the second time I watched it, I was like, oh, this is actually a really good episode.
Well, I think the reason why you felt that way the first time you watched it is because in your mind, you're always thinking about The Simpsons. Because essentially, if you've seen The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror segment, you literally have seen the entire Twilight Zone episode.
Except the nice thing is, though, that with The Simpsons, you didn't actually need to see the episode to enjoy the Simpsons version.
Correct. Now, the next one for number 5 is another one kind of going on the play of so many different things of this promise for a better tomorrow that shall never exist.
For a better tomorrow?
To serve man. Aliens come to Earth with promises of a utopia, of the cure of cancer. But their true motives are revealed in a chilling twist.
Now I'm getting hungry.
Okay, this is not an episode you get hungry with.
I'm getting hungry now. But this episode I really, really like. It's one of my favorites as well, which again Simpsons parodied. Parodied really well as well. Parodied really well as well. But yeah, this episode is really interesting. We've got Jaws from James Bond playing the alien.
Because he's incredibly hella tall.
The interesting thing is when they filmed this episode, they didn't feel like his performance worked, so they needed to re-record his lines, but he wasn't available to re-record, so they had someone else do the dialogue for him, and they actually had a reshot. They actually ended up reshooting a lot of this episode because they didn't like the way it came out. Originally it was going to end with the guy being told the ending, and then it was going to fade out as he was on the ship. But they didn't like the way it ended, so they reshot a brand new ending with it. Which
I have to admit, I do like the ending where it could fade out.
I like the way we got it.
Oh, I like that too, but
But yeah, and they had to do a lot of reshoots with this episode to the point where they didn't think the episode was going to be successful or come out good.
But it is one of the most well-known episodes of Twilight Zone. Next episode, number 6, The Hitchhiker. A woman driving cross-country encounters a mysterious hitchhiker who seems to have, in her perspective, a sinister agenda.
That's another good episode.
This is a terrifying episode.
Never pick up hitchhikers.
Well, and the thing is, no matter where she goes, where she escapes to, the hitchhiker is always following.
There.
Even when somebody else is in the vehicle with her, the hitchhiker is still following her. Now, I won't give away the ending, but it really... The way it ends, you have never expected.
I actually disagree on that. I pretty much guessed it like in the first 5 minutes based on some dialogue that was said at the beginning of the episode, but I still loved the episode regardless. Even though I did know the outcome, I still really liked it a lot.
So, number 7. As a child with a couple of stepfathers, this episode...
The doll?
Has a little feelings for me, especially with my first one. But, Living Doll.
Yeah, Living Doll.
A man becomes increasingly disturbed by his stepdaughter's talking doll, which seems to have a mind of its own. So, in thinking about my first stepdad...
I'm Krusty the Clown and I don't like you. I'm Krusty the Clown and I'm gonna murder you.
Well, the Barbie doll scene with that segment was creepy. But I kind of wish I had a talking doll that could have protected me from a stepfather's abuse. What did you think of this episode?
I think it's very creative with the way it's done. Because you also are like, okay, is the doll truly alive or is he just going crazy from it? So I like how you knew it was alive, but they kept it somewhat ambiguous until towards the very end. I thought it was really well done.
Because his stepfather was abusive, so he got his
he got what he deserved. He was a worthless piece of shit.
I was raised by something like that. So.
Most stepfathers are worthless pieces of shit.
Have you had a stepfather?
No, but I've seen many. And very rarely do they actually treat the kids like they're their own kid.
Some do, but not all. Okay, number 8. Because now I don't want to be depressed anymore, and stepfathers usually make me depressed. Number 8, Kick the Can. An elderly man finds a way to regain his youth, not youth, through a game of Kick the Can, exploring themes of age and nostalgia. So, I can honestly say, while I am old, I have never played a game called Kick the Can. But I do know it is an actual game that was played.
It's not a bad episode. But I hate how everyone treats it that because you're old, you have to give up all the joy in your life.
Well, this is a commentary on that.
I know, and I
feel like it's still true today.
And I agree with that part. It's not a bad episode, it's just not anywhere near my favorites.
But do you think it still holds impact today?
Yeah, because people think that you can't enjoy crap just because you got older. Like, oh, you like that thing? You know that you're 40 years old, right? Yeah, don't you go cheering off your favorite football team every Sunday when they're playing? Oh, don't you go painting your body or wearing their jersey? How is that any different?
Well, and I think that's why I still adore this episode, because it takes place at that time, an old folks' home. Now our retirement communities are almost like apartment complexes and things like that. They have a little bit of similarity, but you're not sharing beds in the same room as they did.
Oh, that's the other thing that,
Smaller nursing homes are like that, where you may share a room with somebody else. But it really does focus on how the moment you're older, in your twilight years, so to speak, that you really can't run around and be foolish, that you can't go out and have fun, that if you don't have family there to take care of you, that you need to go into a place to be taken care of, because you cannot live your own life.
It also reminded me of the episode with the dude in the radio.
Yes.
In the retirement home.
But that has on the nostalgia of what his life was like when his wife was still with him. Not going as far back as to be a child. And it does make you think how much you miss having that capability of doing what you want when you want. So number 9 is the Howling Man. A man stumbles upon a monastery where a prisoner may be something far more sinister than he appears.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember this one.
That's where the guy comes into the monastery from the storm. The monks are telling him he has to leave, and they hear this guy screaming who says he's a prisoner.
Oh! Who is...
And we have the transformation sequence as he's walking past each pillar from behind, because they're pulling like a whole Wolfman bit.
So, that was a really good episode,
That is a good episode.
Now, the last episode is another one that is a little bit foobar on this list that actually also takes place in that vein of the Cold War era, where you never know when and where a nuclear bomb is going to be dropped upon you. The Shelter. A group of friends' true nature is revealed when they face the possibility of a nuclear attack and need to take shelter. So, one thing that you may or may not have heard from your parents, depending on if they're...
Bend over and kiss your ass goodbye.
Boomers versus Gen Xers. Because as a Gen Xer, closer to more of the millennial side, we didn't really... While the Cold War was still existing when we were kids, it wasn't... We took it more for granted. Because the Cold War ended in the mid-'80s.
Well, because we also had the thing, like, okay, if they're dropping a nuclear bomb, how is bending over under your desk going to save you?
But when my mom was in school in the 60s, they literally did have bomb drills, like we have fire drills, where they would have to hide under their desk and curl in the ball, because apparently that's how you're going to save your ass from a nuclear bomb. But this is basically, there was a time in the 60s where people would build bomb shelters in their homes. And these bomb shelters were typically encased in iron and things like that, where you could survive for a number of years. Simpsons did a take on it. Honestly, the movie Blast from the Past that has Christopher Walken and Brendan Fraser was a whole joke on it. And so when everybody hears this bomb drill of an actual attack, only one family on the street was prepared. And everybody else
starts wanting to be part of their shelter, starts demanding it, trying to break the door down. And then when they find out, oh, it was a false alarm.
And not only is it just that, but they actually start accusing each other of horrific things. Like, you're just saying that because you know what's going on, or so on and so forth. It takes on that madness as well.
Or, well, one of them was, oh, you weren't even from this country originally, so you shouldn't be able to be in here because you're not a born citizen.
It takes place on the whole racism aspect of immigration, even the racist aspect of a white woman having married someone who is not from America because she had married that Italian man who was darker skinned. And you had those elements. You had the communist element. You had the paranoia of, well, if you try to get in here, what's going to stop you from pushing us out type of thing. And you just feel so bad for the only family that actually has not done anything wrong.
Which is the one that prepared.
But those are what AI has identified as the 10 best episodes from Twilight Zone.
Which they actually had. It seemed like they actually knew Twilight Zone compared to Tales from the Crypt.
Maybe a lot more people online.
Since those Tales of the Crypt descriptions.
Now, I am going to break your mind if you did not know this world, or if you have someone who talks about wokeness. There is an amazing thing to know about the Twilight Zone. Do you want to share it?
For what?
What the Twilight Zone is, if you try to tell any of these episodes to a MAGA person?
Well, all the episodes Serling wrote.
Actually, I think majority of the series.
Well, not everything. Like, Matheson said he usually tried to not put his political viewpoints in his stories.
Oh, that's fair. Okay, the Serling ones then.
But the Serling ones were all political commentaries, social commentaries on...
That are today what?
Considered woke.
Yes.
The racism, phobias. There's an episode about a black man who is going to be hanged unjustly, so all of a sudden the sun goes out and the sun will not come back up until this guy is let go.
There's also an episode about a black man who was a boxer.
Which was unheard of at that time.
There's an episode that takes place at near the end of World War II against a white battalion versus a Japanese battalion, and you actually see the episode from both eyes.
And then, which has Leonard Nimoy in it. Then there was the episode with the Nazi commander who came back.
Oh, and got his comeuppance.
Basically wanting to gloat and remember the good old days of torturing Jews, and the Jews haunted him and made him go crazy.
There were so many episodes that in today's standards, somebody on the crazed right, I'm not going to judge, but on the crazed right, they may think of it as woke. And then there are some people who might be in the middle who might watch these episodes and think, oh, wow, these are a slap in the face. And you have to remember, this was in an era where conservatism which is a word, I just have a hard time saying it, actually existed on both the right and the left. Democrats and Republicans were just as equally as conservative as each other. There was just slightly less on one side.
I forgot which episode it was, but they got letters complaining about the use of the cross or something in one of the episodes. I forgot what but yeah, all the episodes that Sterling wrote had social commentary in them that people either didn't pick up on because they're cleverly written, or they just, I don't know. But
if you have never seen the Twilight Zone, the 1959 to 64, because I have to differentiate. If you have never seen the original Twilight Zone, I definitely recommend you check it out. I also recommend you check out The Outer Limits, the original from the 60s, as that also had a lot of social commentary. And if you watch it, you would be amazed at how much social commentary was in a series that most baby boomers would have been teenagers, would have been children, to young adults in. That this was their era. And they grew up with this. So think about that. And if you have seen The Twilight Zone, let us know what your favorite episode is from the original series or any of the subsequent series. I'd be curious, because there's great episodes in all of them. We just wanted to focus on the original.
I would say the first 3 seasons only have a couple duds in them.
You were not a fan when they went to an hour long.
No, I'm not a fan of season 4. Season 5 returned to form, but I would say season 5 still had a lot of duds in them. But even some of the duds are still great compared to many other things. It's just compared to the Twilight Zone. I actually do think the first season is the best season of them all.
Absolutely.
Because even Rod felt season 2 was inferior to season 1.
Rod
and
has always held high standards for himself.
Well, actually, in the one episode that we just watched, Cavender is coming. Rod actually sent a letter to, what's her name? The comedian lady.
Just move on. I'm not going to figure... I know who you're talking about. I can't think of her name off the top of my head.
We just watched it the other
I know, but I always forget her name. Oh, fine.
No, okay, forget it. But, oh my god, now, Carol Barnard?
Burnett.
Yes. He actually sent a letter to her saying sorry, but the episode with her has turned out to be one of his least favorite episodes they have made of the show. And he felt they completely underutilized her talents and the other guy's talents.
Fair. So, I think, and I don't want to spoil any of what they say are the least favorite episodes.
The list had pretty good episodes. I don't fully agree with the list. I think Mirror Mirror should have been somewhere in there.
What about the little girl lost?
That one's also pretty good. The Masks.
Oh, God,
The 4 of Us Are Dying.
The Masks are great. The 4 of Us Are Dying, that's a Christmas episode, right?
No, that's the one with the guy who can change his face.
Oh, okay.
No, Night of the Meek should have been in there.
No. I'm not talking about that Christmas episode. I'm talking about the one with the dolls.
Oh, 5 characters in search of an exit.
But
Yeah, Night of the Meek should have been on that list.
Oh, yes. If the Night of the Meek is, no matter what your philosophy is on Christianity or Christmas, this episode is a wonderful social commentary on the differences between the haves and the have-nots. And sometimes the greatest present of it all that you can receive is really just giving back to others. And I know how I'm saying it makes it seem like it's the most joyful episode ever, but it's really not.
Even the remake version from the 80s is just as good, if not better, than the original.
Because it shows about capitalism and greed.
But yeah, so pretty good list. And AI got the descriptions right, which was nice. So
Win.
that's a win. As always, click like, subscribe, bell notification, whatever else YouTube has you clicking into support us. You can support us on Patreon and Bluesky at Toku Network, Facebook, Instagram, Discord at Kaiju no Kami. The website is creativitybydesignllc.com, and you can finish it off to buy cool Kaiju no Kami merchandise /shop, but there's a link in the description below. And until next time, bye.
Happy Halloween!